Amazon. So Amazon had previously issued a huge layoff within the company, the first ever within the company. Now Amazon is laying off another 9,000 employees. Why is this important to you, even if you don't work at Amazon? We'll discuss that, but let's go ahead and rock out with the video.
We've got some breaking news right now. Amazon is saying it is laying off an additional 9,000 employees. This news coming from CEO Andy Jassy in a memo to Amazon employees that is now shared on the company's website. He says that most of these reductions are going to be in Amazon Web Services, in the company's People Experience and Technology Solutions business, what they call PXT, in advertising, and in Twitch. He says this was a difficult decision, but one that we think is best for the company long term. And he also says, you might wonder why we didn't just announce this in January when we announced the elimination of 18,000 positions.
So, originally back in the beginning of the year, this was back when Elon Musk first took over Twitter, and it was unpopular to be able to lay off people from the technology sector or from technology companies. Amazon originally announced 18,000 layoffs of employees. Now, Amazon employs hundreds of thousands of employees, right? The caveat to this, though, is that people are not used to technology companies, the big ones, all in unison starting to lay off employees. More importantly, the sector by which they're laying off employees matter. All of these technology companies, including Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, they all overhired people during the pandemic, especially when things were really great. As far as the Fed was continuing to print money, the rates was really low. The cost of borrowing money was really cheap. What does that mean, Anton? All of these companies, even though they're incredibly profitable, use debt. And they use debt because the cost of borrowing money was cheap. Now, as the Feds continue to raise rates, as the banking sector continues to go in turmoil, as you as a consumer continue to face high inflation, the Fed had printed more money during the pandemic than they ever had. If you were investing in anything, I mean, I don't care what you were doing, day trading, Forex, all of the worst things that you can invest in, buying any stock, you could not miss. You could not. If you didn't make money during the pandemic, you was a whole fool, not a half a fool. I would never even go into investment banking or anything. Don't even think about it if you didn't make money during the pandemic. Everybody was getting money during the pandemic. But it was a false sense of security because it was a temporary thing. And I was warning people during that time that while you thought that you were winning, all you were doing was preparing for a massive layoff. And I had been beating this in your head. And a lot of people were saying, well, Anton doesn't know what he's talking about because nobody is laying anybody off, but it was coming, right? And so the thing about money is that there's cheap money and then there's expensive money. Cheap money is when rates are incredibly low, which means that it's barely costing you anything in order to be able to pull money out. Now, Anton is an advocate against debt, especially for people that are early participants and becoming successful and trying to figure out how it is that they should live their life. Why? Because you don't understand how money works. You don't understand how to look at things from a business perspective. When I say that these companies use debt, if they were to pull money over from where it is that they have their cash stash, let's say, for example, you got these global companies, right? And one of the things that Trump was trying to do, and one of the reasons why you don't understand why it was important for him to be president, despite his dark past and background, shout out to Stormy Daniels for messing it up for everybody, was he was trying to incentivize companies to bring their money and their resources back to the United States of America. So part of his tax reduction plan was to get more money from these technology companies and from these large companies back circulating into the atmosphere of what was going on in the Americas, right? Because if you got money making money over in Europe, and you got money over here in Swiss banks, and you got money that you're making over here in Taiwan and China and all of this other type of stuff, to bring it back over into the United States of America is going to cost you because it's going to be a high tax rate that's associated with it. So Apple, for example, that is cash flush, has money in different sectors of the world based off of where they do business, but they refuse to bring the money back. So then what they do is they leverage debt, especially when money is cheap, in order to continue to do things, expand operations, so on and so forth, because of tax purposes, it long term will allow for them to actually be a lot more or benefit a lot more based off of the fact that they can reinvest in a company and they don't have to pay exorbitant taxes in order to bring it back into the United States of America. Because then what happens? You get more Build Back Better plans, you get more social services, and as they continue to make money overseas, why would they give you a cut of it when you didn't do anything for it? And so what Trump was trying to do during his administration, and this is why I like to break things down from a C student's perspective, what he was trying to do is lower the tax rate, especially for companies that did business in other countries, and incentivize them to bring that money so that we can bring it back into circulation. We can build more things. We can have more jobs. It's a trickle-down effect. And when companies spend more money in your environment, it then creates more opportunities for the people around you, because when you have an anchor, University of Michigan is an anchor for Ann Arbor. Google is an anchor for Mountain View, California. Apple is an anchor, right? When you had Tesla move their headquarters over into Austin, that's why all of the young millionaires from New York and Silicon Valley is moving over into Texas and Austin, Texas specifically. You become an anchor company that then is a feeder for all of the other suppliers, the companies, the restaurants, the workers, even if you don't directly work for that particular entity, in order to build up the tax base and then ultimately make that a livable community. When you don't have jobs, when you don't have an anchor, when you're largely depending on the federal government in order for your city to survive, that's when you start getting urban decay, horrible community centers, grass not cut in the park, depressed property tax values. All of these things are affecting your community, which also feeds into the amount of money that goes into your schools, right? It's a downward slope and effect that then you are affected in everything that you do, right? So when you see this happen, when you see these layoffs, thank you for the compliments. When you see these things happen, and when you say bad man Trump, you're really fighting against your own well-being, because then that money and those resources and that when China comes over here and do business, and then they make all of the money, and y'all love TikTok and all of this other type of stuff, and they get all the information, they benefit as a result of it, because they're taking money out of what it is that we do here. Here, let me break it down from a C student's perspective even better for you. Vegas works. The reason why Vegas works is because people take money from wherever they at. They fly into Vegas, they drop a bunch of money, they have a bunch of fun, and then they leave the money and they go back home broke to their little lady that didn't know what happened in their bank account, right? They lose their business, they lose their house. All of it goes into the Vegas coffers. It gets spread out over into the community, and everybody benefits, everybody wins, except for the little man that flies back home and ain't got no money in his pocket. When you start to get casinos in other places, like, for example, one of the worst things that could have ever happened, in my opinion, in the Detroit economy, even though it did prop up what was happening during the time of the recession and things like that, is to put 3 casinos, and you had Windsor over there in Canada, inside of a city that didn't have any more anchor companies, because the auto companies and the steel companies were going through it. Now we have Quicken Loans. Now we have Dan Gilbert. Now we have a technology sector. Now we have a Google campus over here. Now we got Microsoft inside of Campus Martius Parks and things like that. So you have a diversification of different companies that's then pouring into what it is that we're doing as far as the Detroit sector, right? But when the casinos came in, nobody flew to Detroit, especially during 2008, in order to gamble. They was going to Atlantic City. They was going to Vegas. And so what happened was it became a drain on the people that actually live here. They bust in all of the seniors, all the local people. They would make money, and then they would go and drop their money inside of the casino. And then you had something like an MGM Grand or something like that, siphoning it off back into the corporate headquarters of MGM Grand, which is not here in Detroit, which then continued to depress the economy. The money didn't circulate the way that it was supposed to be circulating. And so when you're making these informed decisions, and you got these large companies or entities or casinos or these different policies, or the different legislative branches are making decisions as to the tax base or what happens within your economy, locally, you are going to be affected if you don't understand and you're not participating in the process. If you don't understand what's happening with the millages, if you're not going to the city council meetings, if you don't know who your treasurer is, if you don't know who's legislating for you inside of your House of Representatives and Congress and all of these other things, and you don't participate because you say that voting don't works, it's just because that you're not informed. So these are big deals. And I'm going to read the super chat shortly. When you see an Amazon laying off 9,000 people, you don't just say, well, these people are losing a job. You're trying to understand exactly what's happening within that atmosphere by which they're laying off in. Where is this happening? Is it happening in this city? And is it happening in this city? Oh, they're continuing to build warehouses, but they're laying off within the technology sector, not necessarily the needed jobs, not necessarily cloud engineers, not software engineers, not these people, but they're laying off all of the other people that say that they're part of IT, but doesn't actually have a real skill set because they realize that they don't need them, which also trickles down into the economy. All right, so let's continue.
At Amazon, he says that the teams had not yet finished their assessments of what was necessary for this year, and they didn't want to rush through those decisions. So that's why this additional 9,000 is being announced today. And Brad, obviously each one of these represents somebody who is losing their role, but it is also just the bigger picture in the tech industry that efficiency is the name of the game right now.
Yeah, and that's the continued message that you hear from either Amazon or even a Meta platforms that upped its own headcount reduction number, and as of recent as last week, as one thing that we've continued to see within these plans going forward, and especially with the announcement of Amazon here, even as they're communicating with these employees, is where that shuffling, the reshuffling of some of the headcounts, as you have massive layoffs that take place at the tech companies that have the largest headcounts out there, where those employees are able to find jobs elsewhere, because that's going to be critical in ensuring that we still do maintain some of the broader employment situation that has still continued to operate from a broader sense of strength. It's just a matter of, okay, where in this displacement are there the replacement or the filling of roles elsewhere that still remain open, even as more hiring freezes are starting to come on? I think that's what a lot of employees that may be impacted by this might potentially be going through their heads right now.
Yeah, I mean, we have talked to companies that are still hiring. We talked to Adobe last week, for example, and they talked about that they are still in hiring mode. One more thing I just wanted to mention that Jassy says he remains very optimistic, he says, about the future and the myriad of opportunities we have, both in our largest businesses, stores and AWS, and our newer customer experiences and businesses in which we're investing. So
of course he's going to say that, because that's CEO speak. All that is jargon and mumbo jumbo for the general public that don't really mean anything. There then becomes a greater competition for the best workers. And you know who then gets affected as a result of it? All of y'all that just want to take these quick courses, you want to take these crash classes, you want to do these boot camps. Now, are boot camps bad? No. Do boot camps prepare you to actually do the job? No. Are boot camps as good as community colleges and then going to school for the thing that you actually want to get a degree in? Boot camps don't even compare. When I give people advice, or you tap into my coaching calls and you say, Anton, what is it that I need to be doing? What path should I take? Should I take the shortcut or the long road? I think you should have both a short-term goal and a long-term goal. But if you want to be competitive and you don't want to find yourself on the outs, you then want to do the thing that you're long-term going to be shooting for, not the thing that quickly gets you a job now. All right? Because then when these workers go out into the field, let's just say, for example, this worker is really good, and I've shown you videos on this channel of cloud engineers or different people that wasn't even fucking doing nothing all day, that may have been a software engineer and they get laid off from Google. That person, as much as we laughed at him, is going to get another job at Adobe. They're going to get another job at Apple. They're going to get another job at another non-technology company that's building out a technology practice. And then it's going to leave you on the outs, because if they got to choose between them and you, because they already have the degree and they have the resume experience to say that, hey, I was working at Google, they're going to choose them, because the only thing that they have to go off of is what the two candidates look like on paper, right? One of the reasons why I created a YouTube channel originally, the Anton Daniels channel, was to document the journey and also to market myself more effectively in corporate America, to separate myself from those that were just on paper as a resume and then those that were actually looking for a cultural fit. I talk about this in the Patreon. I'm going to talk about it some more tonight on how to market yourself more effectively, not just from your business, but also personally. Your online resume, which is the videos that you make, the social media that you have, and how it is that you're presenting yourself online, is going to be much, much, much more effective as a result of you taking it seriously than looking at it as just another opportunity to get a job. If you want to market yourself more effectively, if you want to market your business, you need to be tapping into the webinar that I'm doing tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern inside of the Patreon. It's going to be absolutely awesome.